Williams, quarterback, Southern California.
What's up, guys? Welcome in. We had a bit of a tech problem there, as you guys can see, but all is good now. It's good to see you all here. Tim, as you can see, is not here at the moment. He had a bit of a family emergency he had to deal with at the moment. So, as you can all see, we've got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Aldo Gandia, is here with us. Aldo, why don't you say hi to everybody, and we'll get going with what we have to talk about today.
Hi to everyone, and I'm looking forward to talking some Bears football. Maybe your brother can join us a little later.
We'll have to wait and see, but I guess he has some family issues, guys, so we'll see if he shows up or not. But he thought the twins looked like, yeah, I think there's a little resemblance between me and Aldo here, maybe. You got the beard, the dark complexion. There's something going on there. Yeah, there you go. I like it. So anyways, guys, as you can see, there's been a lot of speculation, in the last couple of days about OTAs. That's the big thing. OTAs are going on right now. There's been some press conferences. There's been some criticism of how the offense has performed, a lot of stuff going on to talk about. So just as always, guys, we urge you to get your questions in the comments, in the comment section there, in the chats, and anything you want to say. So maybe we can get to it at the end. And, also just anything you guys have to say in relation to what we're talking about, we can always throw it on the screen, and it helps to kind of drive our conversation. So as always, feel free to do so. And without further ado, let's kind of get going here with some stuff. We do have some video clips for you guys, but all in all, the emphasis, as we said, was OTAs. And one of the press conferences that was made available to everybody was DJ Moore. I think he was the first player they actually interviewed. And he had a really interesting response to certain questions about what was going on. And one of them in particular was the OTA question about why are you here? And as you guys saw in the clip from the show preview, if you didn't see it, we'll give you a shot, or we'll show it to you in a second here. But he basically said, there's money on the line, number one, and number two, it's important to get this, to build this rapport with the teammates, to get it going with Caleb, and to build that chemistry between each other, so that we can have everything going and, rip roaring ready to go by the time the season starts, by the time training camp goes. So I thought that was interesting. He was not afraid to mention that there was definitely some money there for him on the line. The one thing I was kind of interested about is I wonder if that's the $200,000 he was talking about. Is that like built into his contract if he attends OTAs or not, or is that like some kind of, because you can't be fined. These are a voluntary workout, as if you guys didn't know already. So I'm kind of curious what that was about, but yeah, I'm wondering, what do you think, Aldo?
Yeah, I think there are. If you go to spotrac.com, I think they will have on there what the roster bonuses or what the bonuses are for appearing at Halas Hall for workouts and so forth. So I got a feeling that's probably in there. So yeah, it was one of his very funny remarks, and I'll play it for you here. He does have a really good sense of humor, and I hear a lot of players have been talking about that over the last year that he's been with the Bears, but I haven't seen him demonstrate it. He seems a lot more comfortable now talking to the media, and of course he was part of that video for the schedule release where he's playing Ferris Bueller, and he talked a little bit about that. But this was his response that you alluded to, Jeff, about why are you showing up to camp?
Shoot, $200,000 on the line. I don't want to be here and make that money. But outside of that, we got you got to get the connection down with Caleb and with everybody, even with Rome, the whole room. The whole offense just want to be around each other and build that bond and relationships that we had last year, and then form it with new people like not here.
What has it been like for you seeing this wide receiver room change so dramatically in the offseason?
Shoot. We went from, I don't know who was here, to, you got Keenan, Rome, you got Willis, you got Tyler, and you got endless playmakers in there. Like I said, it's probably going to be a race to 1,000. I don't know who's going to get there first, but it's going to be interesting.
How cool is that? And how cool is he, right?
I mean, really though, he's just, the thing that I really appreciate about him is he's just such a real guy. He doesn't have any kind of bravado or grandiose or anything like that. And he's also not like, trying to be something he's not. He's very comfortable with who he is. He's very down to earth, and he's got a great sense of humor, and he's not afraid to tell things how it is. And I think that was pretty obvious last year to his teammates when they voted him captain. So I think that was very telling. For a new player to walk into that, into his team, and everybody gravitated to him right away and voted him captain. I assume it's going to be the same thing again this year. I'd be shocked if he wasn't a captain again. So, I mean, that was kind of my take on that. I loved that. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you have another clip here of him talking about Justin's departure and Caleb's arrival. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to comment on it right away, Aldo. So you might have to get us started because for some reason these videos are lagging on my feed here. So,
oh, sorry to hear that. Okay, yeah, this one is about 2 minutes long. And so he was first asked about Justin Fields' departure, and he'll comment on that. And then the media proceeded to ask him about Caleb Williams. This is a great exchange, about 2 minutes long. DJ Moore talking with the Bears media.
I mean, I seen it coming. So at the end of the day, he was a quarterback last year. Now we got Caleb, and we're gonna ride through HELL and back with him. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what he put out.
How different is it when you are in an OTA? I mean, you haven't played with a rookie quarterback in a couple of years. How different is that acclimation period for you, getting used to him versus the last couple of years?
Right now we all just getting used to each other. We all gotta learn a new offense right now. And just with him, you just gotta know that the growing pains is gonna be there. For a rookie, I think he 22, 23. So you got a lot to learn and a lot to accomplish in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, the growing pains, obviously. What else so far stands out about him, if you've been able to discern that yet?
You can see the natural leadership is there, the natural arm talent is there. Everything about him is just always a positive thing. And even when he has a bad play, he's looking to learn real fast right after. And I mean, that's all you can ask of him, for him to quickly forget, but also learn at the same time.
When you guys struggle in the red zone today, how do you balance the frustration of you want to score versus knowing, hey man, we're putting in an offense. We got a defense that's running the same stuff they've run for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's frustrating. But we also know that we learned in a new system. They've been in that system for 3 years right now, and then they don't make it no better that they out there having fun with it, and we just frustrated because we ain't accomplishing what we want to. But on the flip side, we know that we still learning and coming together as an offense.
You relay that to Caleb, like, hey, it's all right.
Yeah, you got to because our defense get pretty rowdy, as y'all know out there. So just calming everybody down in the huddle and just refocusing is the best thing.
Why is it important?
Everyone seems to have made a really big deal out of the fact that the offense did not have a very good day. But Kevin Byard, the new safety of the Chicago Bears, he kind of reminded everyone that the day before the offense was all over the defense. Let's listen to Kevin.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. The first day, the offense kind of got after us a little bit. He was making some really good throws. We were in the bubble. He was making some good throws and some deep passes. We kind of had some MAs or whatever, but he had a really good day. And then, today we kind of got after him. So it's one of those things. Sometimes it's going to be back and forth. And that's how, the season's going to be week to week. Every week it's not going to be great. Some week we're going to have to, go 2-minute drill. He's going to go win us a game. Some weeks we're going to blow people out. Sometimes it's not going to be like that. So I would just kind of just tell him that, hey, days like this, just keep fighting, keep going, watch the film, get better. And that's for every player on the team, you know what I'm saying? Everything is not going to be peaches and creams, you know what I'm saying? So, but like I said, I like his confidence, and he kind of just looked me straight in the eyes like, hey, of course I will. So that was good to see.
You play next to a lot.
Jeff, it's funny because, we as fans tend to rush to judgment. We hear something negative and then, or the Bears lose a game one week. Oh, they suck and so forth. They win the next week. Oh, man, we're going to Super Bowl. We really react to extreme levels on stuff. And I think that what Ryan Poles has taught us in these 3 years that he's been general manager, 2.5 years, is that this is going to be a process. It's going to take some time, first of all, to assemble the team, and now to that assembly, because the team is just about ready to kick ass. It's going to take time for the young players to get acclimated to the league, to learn the system and so forth. What are your thoughts on this whole process of developing?
Well, yeah, I'm totally with you. And it's interesting that you say that. And really in the city of Chicago and this fan base in general, I feel like we have a tendency to be very we exaggerate things a lot, and it's almost hyperbolic, I should say. It's kind of weird, how we just really blow things out of proportion sometimes. And yeah, I totally agree with you. That's the first thing that stuck out to me yesterday. And and it's really kind of funny because even back at the draft, before the draft even happened, you hear all this chatter about how, well, he's got to be great or he's going to be terrible. There's no kind of in between thing there. You know what I mean? So, and this isn't specific to Caleb. So now we get into OTAs here, and there's reports about how the offense didn't play particularly well yesterday, as you said. And it's just kind of funny to me because, I don't expect them to play well every single day, especially not in OTAs. Not only just that, but it's like, of course, there's people who are going to come out and say, well, this is terrible. This is not going to work. He should be a superstar right away, right off the bat. And it's, he's going to have his moments, guys, where he shows us that, wow, that, okay, there's that. There was a clip that the Bears put on their Twitter feed of him making a throw to Gerald Everett down the sideline. And it was, guys, it was a dime. Just there's a perfect throw, a nice reaching grab by Everett there. There's been a couple clips of him throwing to DJ. There's clips of him throwing to Keenan. He's spreading the ball around. Not Keenan, I'm sorry, but Cole Kmet. He was spreading the ball around everywhere. So I like how that looks. It's interesting to me how there is some criticism about how he's played, but you really haven't heard people talking about, well, if you notice, he's getting the ball to different people. It's not just he's locking on to one target. You don't hear people talking about that much reporting wise. So I'm interested to see or to know about how exactly that looks, how exactly things are going in regards to his processing. Because as we know, there were some issues with Justin in his processing and his ability to get off the first read and the second read and the timing of those things, how long it took him to do so. So I thought that was kind of interesting that we haven't heard a lot about that. But yeah, I agree with you. There's going to be bumps and bruises. And of course, there's going to be a lot of exaggeration with these kind of things. That's just his fan base. So it's kind of unfortunate to an extent, but also we have to understand that it is part of the growing process. And I would rather see him having bumps and bruises now and learning now than, we're at the end of training camp and in the preseason, the start of the year, and he's still making the same mistakes over and over again. So, or even losing games in the regular season over things that could have been corrected now, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I agree with you on that.
Well, and we got some questions here, I think, that are related to what we're talking now. Squeegee asked, do you think Caleb will get any preseason playing time, or does it depend on his performance in camp? And then Cliff adds to that, Jeff, do you guys think Caleb will play in the Hall of Fame game? Go ahead and answer those questions.
Well, that's interesting. I'll answer Cliff's first because I think it's interesting that you asked that, Cliff. There has been some speculation about the Hall of Fame game. Typically, starters really don't play in that game. If you guys aren't familiar, it's a fourth preseason game that really no other team has except for the Bears or the Texans. So most teams are not going to play their starters in that game. They're going to get a feel for what they have depth-wise on the roster. But I would, because of the fact that Caleb was the number one overall pick, and this is a big game for the NFL. It's the first game of the season for them, outside of the regular season, of course, but it's their first chance to give the viewers a look at the new teams. I would imagine they're probably going to be asking the Bears, get him on the field for a snap or two, just get him in the game a little bit, see, so people can see him. But I would be shocked if he actually plays in the game and does anything of significance. And to answer the second question, I can't remember what it was now.
Squeegee asking about, just in general preseason playing time.
Preseason, yeah. I do think he'll play some. I think you need your starters to play some in general, but guys like Keenan and DJ, that you probably see them playing a little less than someone like Caleb, who is a rookie and who is going to have to get a little bit of, an entry, I guess, into this it's not really a good word for it, but a peek into what he's going to see in the regular season, I guess. He needs to get a feel for this. So I think he'll play a little bit more than the regular starters would, the regular veteran starters would, but I don't anticipate him playing a ton in the preseason because obviously, they're not going to want to risk injury with their number one quarterback. So I do think he'll play some, but I don't think it'll be a ton. But go ahead and give us your thoughts on that, Aldo.
Yeah, frankly, I think that in that Hall of Fame game, we should get him out there for the first series, get rid of those, at first NFL game, even though it's preseason, get rid of those jitters. Let him go through the process of preparing like he's going to be out there for the first series, go out there and play the first series, couple of handoffs, a couple of passes, get your feet wet. Then the first preseason, he should get a full first quarter of action and then the play calling should be conservative. It should be timing passes, 3-step drop, fire the ball, a lot of running plays and so forth. So again, that he can get his mojo going with the NFL game. And then that second preseason, treat it like the NFL used to treat preseason games when there were 4 of them. That's your game where the starters are seeing at least a half of starting time, maybe 3/4, and then you install some of the things that we might see during the regular season. But he's a brand new quarterback to the NFL, and I think one of the mistakes we saw Matt Nagy make during his coaching tenure with the Bears is that he didn't play the starters. He treated them like they had won Super Bowls, and that was such a huge detriment to the development of players. So let's not be afraid of injury. Let's be cautious. You don't want him, running out there 7-step drops, 9-step drops, making him a target for pass rushes. But he's got to go out there. You don't treat your kids like don't go on the monkey bars. You might fall down. You can't do that with a professional football players. You got to go out there, treat them as men, let them go out there, have some fun, but make sure you're being smart about it.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And Sproles makes a comment here that they made the same mistake with Fields, that you have a preseason for a reason, you play him. And I do agree. You got to play him. I mean, obviously you're not going to play him every single game, every single snap for all 4 of those games that you have. I mean, typically, like I mentioned before, you have 3, but with this Hall of Fame game, the Bears have 4. So no, you're not going to play him every snap of those 4 games. But yeah, you got to get him out there. You got to get a feel for these NFL defenses in live action, a different look from what you're seeing in practice from your defense, because there are many other defenses, as you guys know, besides just that 4-3, penetrating defense that Matt Eberflus likes to run, that cover 2, that Tampa 2. So there's a lot of other looks out there that he's going to see. So it's a matter of getting those, getting eyes on those and getting some experience with that, in my opinion. So, and not only just that, there's some other comments in here that are being said about, as we mentioned with the OTAs and how the offense had a bad day. And there's both some positive and negative comments in here about that. And the first thing I want to say, guys, is somebody else made a comment about this in here also. And there's been a lot of talk about this from other talking heads. We got to remember, this is a very, very good defense that Caleb Williams is going up against in practice, guys. Okay, the Bears had a top 10 defense last year, and that's without a significant pass rushing presence outside of Montez Sweat. So the team is only going to be better than they were last year's defense. They're going to gel together more. The pieces are growing. They got another edge to work with here, a nice little project in Austin Booker, who I think is going to make an impact in year 1. Maybe not a significant one, but he will play. And there's going to be, like I said, I feel like everybody else is just going to continue to grow. This is a tough defense to go against. And Matt Eberflus said that in his press conference. It's a pretty darn good defense he's going up against here. So we got to keep that in mind. And again, guys, like, he is a rookie. He's gonna learn things. He's gonna find out that the windows he had to throw in college are not the same as he has in the NFL. Guys like Kyler Gordon and Brisker and Jalen Johnson, they're gonna cut those windows off very, very quickly. So we got to remember that he is going to have to learn some stuff, guys. He's not going to walk in and be a superstar right off the bat. It'd be great if he was. It'd be great if everybody walked in the first game and they were as good as CJ Stroud is right away, and he might be. But we got to keep in mind, guys, this is OTAs. If we're just starting this whole process, give him a chance to grow and see what he can do.
Yeah, Kenny says, in quotations, generational talent struggling on 7-on-7s. And Kenny, you got to be joking, right? Because anyone who knows about the history of Chicago football or NFL football knows that the record for most interceptions in a rookie season is Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning goes on to have a Hall of Fame career, 2 Super Bowl wins and so forth. And coming out of college, he was already given that title, generational talent. It takes a while for guys to develop. Some takes a little longer than others, and hopefully it won't be that long with Caleb. But you can't, like Jeff eloquently said, you can't, start tagging people with labels after a couple of OTAs. It's just silly. You got to take it all into context. And Jay Sanders says not having a veteran backup is dangerous. I got to say this, because we've had veteran backups before. Hasn't seemed to do any good for any of those quarterbacks we had in the past.
It was dangerous having Nick Foles there from what we've heard in the past couple of months. I mean, shit,
That's right.
That didn't work out very well at all. So
that's right.
It's a double-edged sword here, guys. You got to remember. Look, I mean, so as good of a mentor as Andy Dalton was for Justin Fields, and how they're still close and all those things. There's been talk about how there was abrasion between Fields and Nick Foles. So it's like, sure, it's a good idea to have it sounds good on paper, I should say, to have a veteran quarterback in the building to help your guy along. But also it's like, it just depends on the situation. And also these are different situations than like Pat Mahomes walking in with Alex Smith, who was an established starter. It's a different situation. It's a totally different situation than Aaron Rodgers walking with Brett Favre. Okay. So we have to remember this, guys. We can't just assume that any veteran free agent quarterback on the market is going to walk in and help the learning process for your young quarterback. There's nuance to this, okay? And he's got Shane Waldron there. He's got a new quarterback coach there. They've got guys in place that they have there to bring him along. So they have a plan in place clearly. If they wanted to bring in a veteran backup to work with him, they'd have done that. So, and they do have Brett Rippon. I mean, he's not, going to light the world on fire by any means, but he's obviously a decent mind. So, and Scroll says, who's Stroud's backup? Nobody knows. And he says he rests his case with that. So, I mean, you got a good point. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's a matter of how he's developed by everybody else who's around him. It doesn't have to be a veteran quarterback per se, in my opinion.
Yeah, if people are saying, we need a backup quarterback to help tutor your rookie quarterback, I say, hey, players play, coaches coach. That's what it should be. And you might be able to benefit from a 15-year veteran quarterback say, well, I remember back in 2021 when I did this. But at the same time, that's not really going to help that much. The coaches should be the ones totally responsible for the preparation of the quarterback in terms of everything from knowing the playbook to the mechanics of throwing the football to being ready on game day and to calling the right plays on game day for success. That's their job. The backup quarterback should be ready if needed, and I think there's a lot of confidence in Tyson Bagent, which is why they don't have a more experienced quarterback. They like the fact that he took them to 2 victories last year at 2-2. And, I think it was somebody over at the Score, Lawrence Holmes, said that's what I look for my backup quarterback. 2. Can he get me 2 wins? And he did. And so, and there's no reason to think that he isn't going to get better in his second year as the backup quarterback. So right now, I got no complaints about how the Bears have handled this quarterback situation.
No, there's been several people, and even just recently, somebody just said on Twitter, I can't remember who it was now, that this might be the best situation and number 1 pick has ever walked into. There's another clip that we'll play for you guys later from, if you guys haven't seen, there was a video that the Bears put out from their 1920 football drive segment. It was like a 38-minute video, but it's excellent. And they talk about, there's a couple different clips of different people saying, like Mike Greenberg was one, for instance, during the draft, said, this is probably the best quarterback or the best situation and number 1 pick quarterback has walked into that I can remember in my lifetime. Those are his words. So, and really in my lifetime too, I can't remember a number 1 pick walking into a situation like this. I mean, think of all that they've done to surround him with weapons, and not just offensively. Look at his defense. I mean, and I know Don Burr's in here talking shit about the Bears defense and how they're not a top 5 unit because of the quarterbacks they faced at the tail end of last year. But there's a reason that Jalen Johnson got paid the money he did. There's a reason that he is at the top of just about every single freaking metric there is for corner play. There's a reason that the Bears limited all these teams in scoring. There's a reason that all these other coaches are saying the Bears have a good defense, because they do. I mean, they have a limited pass rush, and it was obviously much worse before Sweat got there. But if they can get a little bit more push, especially from the inside guys, this defense is going to be scary. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you got to think about that too. That's a good thing for your quarterback to have. I mean, Tim and I talked about this a lot before the draft. It's important to have a defense. It's not important to just have weapons for your rookie quarterback and other players around him offensively that can help him develop. It's important to have a defense who can get the F off the field. You got to have a defense who can keep teams at bay, who can give your offense a chance to be on the field and get something going. If your defense, like at USC, where Caleb Williams was at before, is never getting off the field and isn't going to give your offense an opportunity to have time to go score and to get some points on the board, that's a serious problem. The Bears have a very good defense that is going to limit opportunities for opposing offenses, which is going to help Caleb Williams in his development indirectly. And to me, that's a bigger deal than people make it out to be. And I think that's a very important aspect of this team.
Yeah, and a lot of people are concerned about the Bears pass rush, and there's no doubt that they need one more piece. And knowing, having experienced how Ryan Poles operates, I bet you they have their eyes on a couple of players. Definitely the possibility of bringing Yannick Ngakoue back is still alive. He's working out. He's putting stuff on social medias, and he's ready to go. There's that connection with the Bears. So if he's going to get a contract offer, his agent will probably call the Bears first and say, this is what we're getting from such and such. So that's there. But I bet you also that they have looked at depth charts from other NFL teams, and they have said, you know what? This go after June 1st, or that guy could be available after June 1st. So let's hold our horses. We know that the Bears general manager and assistant general manager are experts at being patient and letting things come to them, as opposed to them overspending, over trading. And you're absolutely right, Jeff, that video 1920 on the Bears draft was super production with great insight as to what goes on behind the scenes. Now, talking about the pass rush, this was defensive coordinator Eric Washington. In his first press conference, he talked about the defensive back-to-back seven and how impressed he was. And he was asked about the front, and he's also very impressed. And a great follow-up question from Courtney Cronin.
Just excited about the growth of the entire unit. When I was here a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the back seven. I'm really excited about what the defensive line is doing. I see revised and refined pass rush fundamentals, and I just see a group that's really working together right now that has a lot of energy, that they're developing the attitude that we're going to need going into the season.
Before you get into pads, how can you assess where this pass rush is and what it may still need to be what you expect from this unit this year?
Great question. Just the quickness, the fundamentals, being able to address position fundamentals relative to that. And there's just watching the level of conditioning that we need, watching the guys work together. I mean, there's some things that we can do. When we're working against the offense, we call it rushing that 80%. 20% we can't affect, and that's following through and actually hitting the quarterback. But the other 80%, working our edges, being aware of the situation, knowing how to address our four-man rush on third down, how to work off of each other, how to communicate, that's a part of that 80%, and I really like what I'm seeing.
Will there be some?
How impressive is Eric Washington, Jeff? Don't you, this is the second or third time I've heard him at the podium, and boy, he says the right things, and he says it with authority. He was also invited into the weekend NFL gathering where coordinators get to spend time with NFL owners so that they can start laying a foundation for potential head coaching jobs and moving up in the NFL. And he was the representative from the Chicago Bears. So that was really, really cool. Impressive guy, don't you think, Jeff?
Oh, I think he's incredibly impressive. Yeah, every time he steps to the podium, you just get this vibe that this is the kind of guy who has confidence in what he can do on his side of the ball. He's also just got conviction in the guys that are in front of him to work with. He likes the pieces, and like you said, he's very, just the way he approaches the press conferences. I feel like he's got a very good demeanor. He's a very intelligent guy. And it just seems like he is a good. I mean, it's a totally different scenario than what we had with Alan Williams. And a guy who just kind of was very dry, didn't really say a whole lot of anything. Whereas Washington, you hear him talk and you feel this fire out of him. You just feel like he's going to get the best out of his guys. And you can see why Eberflus would want to bring in a guy from the outside like that to work and be his defensive coordinator, a guy who he can trust to do it the way he wants to do it. And it's impressive. I agree with you. I really like the guy. And I think he's going to be a great fit. And I think he's going to take some of the burden off of Eberflus defensively. Yeah. And, he has expressed that he wants to call plays eventually. When he accepted the job, he told Eberflus, it's your role, you keep it. But eventually I want to work my way to calling plays again because he's done it in the past. And I think that kind of energy can be very, very useful in a clubhouse. When you've got a head coach and a defensive coordinator who perhaps do not always agree, that tells me they are looking at things from a 360-degree perspective. Well, what about trying this? Well, what about that? I disagree with that call here. I agree with that call. That can really become a meaningful and very productive relationship as long as it's done with respect for each other. And there's no reason to believe those two gentlemen wouldn't have that respect. So I'm excited about that collaboration between Eberflus and Washington. Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that too, because last year, if you guys don't remember, early on in the season, Eberflus was running a lot of really soft coverage. And it was, the DBs were getting burnt a lot. We were getting beat a lot in coverage, which is, it's really doesn't make any sense for the kind of the defensive backfield we have. They're good in press and they can get up in guys' faces and cover. So after a while, Phil Snow was hired about maybe halfway through the season or so. And as soon as that was done, he was a defensive analyst. And I believe he's still with the team. And after that, Eberflus started getting a little bit more aggressive with his play calling, both with blitzing and with pressing more with the DBs. And I just feel like having a guy like Eric Washington there who has a different perspective is going to do a lot of the same thing. Maybe he can look at it and say, look, I'm a defensive line guy. I know what our defensive line can and can't do. Maybe we should think about a different call here on this down. Okay. So I agree with you 100%. I think it's a good fit. And McFax says that Eberflus is an aggressive defensive coach. I think he's an aggressive coach. I'm not sure he's an aggressive defensive coach per se. He's for, I agree with you there. He's going to go for it on fourth down and all those things, but what I would say in an argument to you there, McFact, is defensively, he said before he would drop 8 into coverage every single time if he could and just rush with 3 if he could get home. So we know he would like to play conservatively if he was able to do that. If he has to send extra rushers, it kind of messes with his back end and the way he wants to cover. So I do agree with you. He has aggressive tendencies as a coach, but as a defensive play caller, I think it's in his nature to be more conservative in that regard. So I think this is good to have in mind there.
I think you made a good point about Snow and his impact on the defensive play calling by Eberflus being more aggressive. And there was also word that the players were asking for more aggressiveness in the pass rush. I know that Montez Sweat was very complimentary about Eberflus, saying, he listens to the players. And, the players want, and especially the linebackers, they want some blitzes called and so forth. And I know, it's the trend. It's the Vic Fangio trend. He started it here in Chicago, and it's taken over the NFL in terms of calling defenses, of playing that shell and just having everything in front of you. Don't let anything beat you. And so in order to play that shell, the more players back there, the more effective the shell. But, if you can have just 3 or 4 pass rushers, the likelihood is the quarterback is going to have some time to find some openings in that shell. So you've got to spice it up. You got to throw in some blitzes. You got to make it exotic. And I think as time goes on, and I believe we started to see it last season, offensive coordinators are starting to figure out how to pick up yardage in that shell. And How do you do that? You run the ball. We're starting to see more run plays called, because if everyone's back there in the shell, you give it off to the running back, and all of a sudden that 2nd down and 10 is now 3rd and 1 because the guy picked up 9 yards. So, it's the game of chess that's going on, and hopefully Eberflus, has his chess lessons all in order so that we can have that dominating defense again in 2024 after a great finish last season. We got some more video to share. What do you think about let's listen to Eric Washington talk about the veteran presence of Bayard, the safety who's replacing Eddie Jackson.
I've been aware of Kevin for a while. I had a chance to coach one of his teammates, Daquan Jones, at Buffalo. And those two guys worked together for a long time, and so I was aware of Kevin. His production speaks for itself. And so from afar, you look at that and you see a safety who has that type of ball production. And then when you get him here, you can see the command, the intelligence, his ability to communicate very, very quickly, and especially as we need to make adjustments before the ball is snapped. And I just like him. I mean, he's got a great personality. He's done a lot of things in his career, but he's a humble person and very receptive, very open. So that's the kind of guy you want to be around.
Hey, I got some great news for you, Jeff.
Is that great news or is that bad news?
No, this is great news. Look who's here, Tim Willis, ladies and gentlemen.
He's entered the building. Like I said, I'm not sure if that's good news or bad news, but
yeah. Hey, I'm sorry, everybody. It's been a crazy week for me, and some stuff went on tonight. I had some things to take care of, but I'm here for the last 20 minutes or so. But yeah, I don't know what you guys have discussed, Jeff. But like I said,
most importantly, Tim, is everyone in the family okay?
Yes.
Health-wise, everyone's fine? Okay, good.
Yeah, we're all good there. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
very good. Well, we've covered talking about DJ. So if you've got some thoughts to share about DJ Moore, and we were just talking some defense. Eric Washington talking about the pass rush and how impressed he's been, and Kevin Bayard, Eric Washington talking about the leadership presence that Bayard offers. So I'll get you right into it right now. What do you think about this veteran, Kevin Bayard, and how much better is the defense going to be because he's there as opposed to Eddie Jackson?
Well, I mean, you could hear the veteran leadership from him. You could tell that he was coming in. There wasn't going to be this big hurdle. He was going to be able to just walk in there, and his presence was known. Like I said, he is the veteran, so he's going to be able to walk in there, have no issues. It's just really just getting through the playbook and the defense and learning everything the way they do it in Chicago. But it's not going to be really a big change for him, I don't think. As far as on the field play goes, like obviously you're going to see a much more willing tackler than you saw with Eddie Jackson. You're going to see a little bit more of the ball skills, I think. Eddie Jackson had ball skills, but I just don't think that he had the effort the last few years here in Chicago after he got his contract, really, and then injuries. And I think Kevin Bayard's going to give you a little bit more of that effort to make sure that he gets to those takeaways that we didn't see from Eddie towards the end there. But, we'll see what happens with it. I don't think, and he's never missed a game or practice in his career. So
Wow.
that's one thing we're going to have is somebody who's there, all the time. We don't have to worry about him missing games, missing time, where obviously Eddie Jackson, that was a big thing for him, was dependability. So, I mean, yeah, that's to me, that's going to be the biggest part of the upgrade there is the dependability. And I think Eddie Jackson did wonders for Jaquan Brisker in a lot of ways, but I think there's a lot he can learn from Kevin Bayard too, obviously. And, Eddie Jackson had only ever played in Chicago. Kevin Bayard is now on his third team. So, and one of them was a Super Bowl contender last year until the season kind of fell apart, but, returning Super Bowl runner up. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with it. And, but I do think that's definitely going to be an upgrade versus what we have with Eddie Jackson. Yes.
Yeah. And I'll quickly add that I think one of the benefits, and you touched on this, Tim, is the fact that he can play in the box. He's a willing player in the box. We knew that A. Jackson didn't want to go anywhere near the box. He wanted to play center field, go for interceptions. There's that famous clip where he was mic'd up in practice talking about, hey, anybody can tackle. You got to go out there and get interceptions. And so what did he do that season? He didn't tackle or get interceptions. So
and Kevin Byard mentioned that too in that press conference was, we don't want to make it obvious that, if Quan is here in this coverage, we know that he's we know what the coverage is. Excuse me, I'm kind of confusing myself here, but basically we want to both be able to do center field. We both want to be able to play in the box. That way teams they're not set on what we're doing. They're going to be more confused, which, that's one thing we've seen from Kevin Byard is he can do both of those things. And Jaquan Brisker can as well. He's got pretty good ball skills too. So.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say, as soon as Aldo started talking about that, him playing in the box and Jackson not being much of a guy who does that, that was really interesting to me because Byard did mention in his presser, like, hey, look, I don't want teams to get a beat on us. I don't want them to know, like, hey, if you're up in the box or if I'm up in the box, this is what we're going to do. Because obviously, everybody in the world knew that Eddie Jackson was not going to come down and crash down on the run like that. He's going to stay back and play defense or play center field. So, yeah, I agree with that. I think it was interesting that he mentioned he wants them to have that versatility between the two of them. And real quick before we move on to the next thing, I saw your comment in there, Scrolls, about what you talking about, Willis, and yeah, it was kind of funny the first 7,000 times I heard it, but other than that. Good. That's a good little comment there for you.
Yeah. That's the first time I've seen it in the chat, so you're forgiven, Scrolls.
That's a good point.
More. Yeah. Hey, guys, I'm going to turn it over to the two of you. It's your show. I'm going to go into the background and listen up. Still have that 1920 clip to play, and I know the guys in the chat room have a few questions for you, so take it away, and I'll see you guys after the show.
Thank you for filling in, Aldo. We appreciate you being on.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate you doing that for me. But hey, really quick, Jeff, before we get into the 1920 stuff, I know you guys said you talked about DJ Moore, but how do you not love the guy? Like, what a fun interview. And, just that relaxed, calm, cool, he felt like, like another person in the room, not just, a wide receiver for the Chicago Bears, but like another guy, somebody that you could walk up to, have a conversation with, and, he's just going to joke around, love, and, have fun with you. So, I loved that about it. I loved his interview, and I wish that he would get more opportunity like this. But during the season, he's a lot more business, I feel like. But it was a really fun interview listening to him, and I could definitely feel that confidence and the way he was. You could just tell there was a change in the atmosphere. So I loved that about it. But yeah, I didn't know what you guys talked about before with that, but that was something I definitely noticed.
Basically the same thing you do. Just we were not surprised that his teammates voted him captain last year, and he's just got this presence as a real guy, and he's got a great sense of humor. He's just a great fit and a great leader. Everybody loves the guy. I mean, so I think we're starting to see more of who he is as a person in his second year with the Bears here, and I think it's really cool to see his personality shine a bit more. And as I told you guys multiple times here on the show in the recent past, I think DJ Moore is going to have an enormous season. I mean, every bit as big as last year, if not bigger. I mean, yeah, they have these other pieces around him. We got to remember DJ Moore is a great player. And, he's getting paid a lot of money. Keenan Allen's on an expiring deal. He's still the guy for this offense. And I fully anticipate him to get a ton of work. So everything about this guy is what you want. Everything from production standpoint, from a person standpoint. And so that being said, speaking of DJ, there is a clip that Aldo has for you guys here of him talking about Shane Waldron's offense. If you'd like to give this a listen.
I love it. I mean, everybody can touch the ball. It's complex, but it's going to be detailed in what you got to do. So you really got to study.
How can the three of you, as you, Keenan and Rome, make each other better on the field and really impact each other in this offense?
Probably just learning from each other. I know I'm going to learn from Keenan. Because he's been like top for a while now, and then Rome been asking a lot of questions and stuff like that. So I think we all just going to bounce ideas off each other, bounce different routes and stuff off each other just to complement each other.
I mean, yeah, you could tell they're definitely, this group is already pretty tight. The fact that Rome was willing to ask them questions and DJ even openly saying, like, not just that he could learn from Keenan, but he's willing to go out there and listen and hear what Rome does, how he runs routes, how he does things, which is crazy to hear that from a guy who's been playing for 6-7 years with tons of success is willing to listen to what a rookie says.
Successful?
Exactly.
That's how you get that successful. You're an open book. You accept information from everywhere. And whether or not it helps you or not, that's for you to decide to figure out. But to just turn someone off because they're a rookie, maybe there's something that he does in his game that DJ hasn't thought about or hasn't seen, and it can help him to make his game even better, a little piece he can add to himself. So, yeah, I mean, why not? That's, like I said, that's how the greats get great. So I love that about him. And it's obviously, I feel like these guys are all going to enjoy playing in this offense with the ball being spread around like that. And I just think it's going to be a good fit for everybody. And like you said, the wide receiver room and the rapport, I love the way it looks right now and how everybody's kind of working together with each other. The one thing I'm interested to see is what happens with Keenan Allen and whether he gets extended or not. But that's another story for another day. So, but in any case, so yeah, Tim, I mean, like we said, the JJ thing, the press conference is great. I think he's going to be a great leader again this year. I fully expect him to be a captain again. And, how do you not love the guy? So before we get too far along, I want to get some of your questions. So let's get this video from the 1920 football drive segment. This was really, really good, guys. Like I said, if you haven't seen it already, go check it out. It's like a 38-minute video, but it is just excellent behind-the-scenes footage that really the Bears have never given us access to before. So it's pretty cool to see how they are in the draft room and otherwise just seeing some of the scouts talk. But here's a little clip from that, from the Bears waiting for Rome to fall to 9 to see if he was going to make it there.
The New York Giants have submitted their pick. Tennessee is now on the clock. Tennessee has submitted a pick. Atlanta is now on the clock.
What's our percentage?
Michael
S. Penix. Shane, you okay with this? Is it too much for you? Weiss. Don't send it in, but did you type Odunze, Rome Odunze? Okay.
It's Ryan Post from the Bears. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, man?
Good. You ready to roll?
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be really fun.
Can you believe this, man?
Oh, man. It's surreal, man. It's surreal.
I cannot believe it that it worked out exactly like we said it would. It's going to be a hard cover. I know that.
Oh, yeah. So you already know that.
It's going to be a hard cover.
Trio of us. We're going to make it happen now.
With the 9th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Rome Odunze, wide receiver, Washington.
We didn't have to give up anything.
That's the Burt, number 1, number 2 player, though.
Unbelievable.
Can't believe it. For real.
Seriously, man, I know that wasn't easy. Way to stay patient.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh man, I got juice bumps.
Hang on. So a couple things that stuck out to me before I get it over to you, Tim, and then we'll get your questions, guys. But a couple things that stood out. The one thing that, first of all, that really stood out to me right away was Kevin Warren talking to Ryan Poles and saying, "Hey, you told me if you had I can't remember the exact words, but it was like a dream scenario, a perfect day. This is what it would have been. You'd have gotten Caleb and Rome, and you wouldn't have had to do any kind of trading. You'd have kept all your picks." And they say that. They mention it. I have a first rounder next year and 2 2s. So that, to me, says all you needed to know. This is what they wanted right off the bat. Ian Cunningham mentions this is number 1 and number 2 player on the board. So they got their top 2 players. That was interesting to me that they had them as number 1 and number 2. And I've told you guys before, the character thing, the football character is a huge piece for this regime. And I guarantee you that was a huge part of why he's number 2 on their board, if that was in fact the case. And the second thing that really stood out to me that was interesting was Poles getting nervous about when they got to 5 and the Giants. And I'll get to another thing that stuck out too, but about the Giants at 5 and how he thought his gut was telling him they were going to take Rome and they ended up taking Neighbors. So that was probably a little relief off of his chest, but I thought it was kind of funny that his gut was telling him his guy was going to be gone. But the other thing I wanted to mention that kind of stuck out to me, and I told you guys this many, many times coming up to the draft, J.C. Latham, that man, I told you guys, he is going to go high. He is a very, very good player. Everybody's high on him. He went 7th, but the Bears thought he could go as high as 5th. They were talking about that in the video. I think it's going to be Latham, or I think it's going to be Alt here. So they clearly had him as that kind of graded player on at least down their board, and I thought that was interesting. So go ahead and give us your thoughts, Tim, and then we'll get to some of these questions.
Well, the big thing for me was like what you mentioned a minute ago, how, Ian just looked at him and was like, man, we got number 1 and number 2. Like, and you got to think, how has there ever been a team who's gotten number 1 and number 2 on their board in the draft? Probably not. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. There's a good chance Tennessee,
the Texans last year,
Houston. I was just going to say Houston last year, very good possibility, but they had to trade up for that number 2. That's what I'm saying, is that when was the last time a team has probably drafted their 1 and 2 and didn't have to do any moving around whatsoever, and they still have all the assets that they do next year? That's huge. And like you were saying, the character thing with Rome, I'm sure that did play a huge part of it. And, a lot of people talk about the tape of Marvin Harrison and thought that he was the number 1 receiver. Maybe the Bears just didn't want to deal with that kind of all the stuff that's surrounding him right now. They're now with the jersey sales thing, and there's just all kinds of stuff surrounding Marvin Harrison. And
he signed his deal now, so that's done.
Right. Well, yeah. Okay. But regardless, there's been a lot of stuff surrounding that story and surrounding him. And Rome has just been class personified. And so it's just been, maybe they look at it like the talent was probably, or the tape is probably very similar, even though you could probably make an argument. And I've said it all along that I think there's a lot of things that Rome can do that, Marvin Harrison can't. So to me, that's a good, that's what got him probably ranked so much higher on their board. And, you could tell they definitely liked this kid from the very beginning. The scouts really liked this kid too. If you guys have not seen the whole video, go in and watch it. It is really, really, really good. One of the best, probably the best one I've seen yet that the Bears put together. And like Jeff said, some pretty behind the scenes footage that we've never seen from the Bears before. So I really like, people could say whatever they want about this new regime, but I think this Ryan Poles regime has really changed the culture of the Bears in more than just one way, not just the football side of things, but he's bringing in, a new age and a new way of looking at things and a new sign, just this is the landscape of the NFL now. It's either you get on board or you get out, because you're not going to last. You have to jump on and follow, the stream to where it's going. So there's a lot of good things to take from this. Like I said, if you guys have not watched the video, go watch the whole thing. It's excellent. And you see that connection right away when later in the video they show Rome and Caleb coming together to Halas that Friday morning, and immediately they're greeted with everybody. And it was, everybody was like, "Hey, long time no see. How are you?" They had a relationship with everyone already. Like, this was something that the Bears did not hide, that this is the direction that they wanted to go. And, of all the things that we've known from Ryan Poles, he does keep the cards close to his vest, but at the same time, he does everything with conviction. He doesn't hide what he's going to do. Well, I shouldn't say he doesn't hide it. He doesn't say he's going to do one thing and do another. He's very intentional about how he does things. So when all this stuff was starting to come out, there's probably a good reason for that, because it was never in question for this organization. And I loved the way they handled this. Like, a lot of people wanted to see that offensive lineman. A lot of people wanted to see the defensive lineman, including you, Jeff. You really like Dallas Turner. And I was okay with any of those positions, because they were all needs to me. But, this is, if you want to help out your young quarterback, get the receiver that, this kid was a very, very good talent. One of the, if it would have been another draft, we're probably talking the best receiver in the draft. And, the friendship and the relationship that he had with Caleb, that's already got some chemistry to it. Why overthink it? Just do what works, or, make the decision that's going to help your young quarterback the most. And I think this was the way to do that, for sure.
Yeah, like I said, they looked like they got their dream scenario, their perfect situation. So anyhow, let's move on to these questions before we get out of here. There's a couple of them in here for us to get to. Mark asked for record predictions. I believe it was Mark that asked that. If Mark, if you have a chance, go back to our episode last week. We did our little schedule release episode, and Tim and I actually gave a rundown of how we thought the Bears would finish with each game. So I had them finishing at 10-7. I believe Tim had them finishing at 11-6. But
yes,
yeah, definitely go back and watch that episode, Mark, if you haven't had a chance to. It's a good one with how we think they'll fare in each game. So that being said, I think there's another question, one more question in here from, I think it was Squeegee. Why not make the starters play until they score? And I think, Squeegee, you're referring to, we were talking earlier about the Hall of Fame game, the first preseason game. And, just because they might not necessarily score right away, for one, Squeegee, but the fact of the matter is I think it's just a matter of getting them out there and letting them make an appearance in that game so they can see them. But really, they don't need to make too much of a point of emphasis in getting these guys out there, because, again, we don't want anybody to get hurt. That's the main thing. So
my prediction is if they put Caleb Williams out there, which I think is a huge if, I'm going to say it's not going to happen. But if it does, he's going to maybe hand the ball off one time and he's going to be off the field. They're not going to play him much in that game, especially with it being an extra preseason game.
All right, we got a couple more in here. Let's get to, I think Don's got a question, believe it or not. Don wants to ask us something.
This.
Our resident Lions fan, for whatever reason, who's on just about every barroom podcast that we have for the Bears. He wants to know,
as well as every other Bears one.
He wants to know when he says when and not if, when Caleb looks like he looked yesterday in practice all year, if they ask for Fields to return. So number one, Don, I really don't see him faring that way every single day. He's only going to get better. But if that were to be the case, I think every Bears fan would be it wouldn't be necessarily people clamoring for Fields back. Although I'm sure there would be plenty of those, but I think it would be more along the lines of I can't believe we're going through this again kind of thing. But Don, to be honest with you, buddy, we got I should say such a better situation around Caleb than they have had around any other rookie quarterback in the past, that I would be shocked if he didn't at least have some success in year one, to the point where I expect the Bears to be a playoff team.
I've got two things to say to that question Don asked. Number one, it's OTAs of his rookie season. And yes, he's a rookie. He's going to have bad days and bad games. Whoop-de-doo. I'm not paying any stock towards what happened at his first OTA. And question number two for you, Don, where are you going to be during the season when the Lions miss out on the playoffs and have a down year and you just paid Jared Goff $50 million? How are you going to feel then? That's my answer to that question, with a question.
I did find that Goff deal was a little wild to me, but that's
crazy.
They're a good team and they're winning with him. So there's a few more questions. Let's try to get to him. Scottish Bear wants to know, he says that Booker's reportedly put on 10 pounds in the last 3 months. Do we think that he'll make an impact early, or if he needs developing, or both? I think both. Scottish Bear,
yes.
I think he'll make an impact early. I think as a situational rusher, I think he will get pressures. I think he's got a very unique skill set to where I do think he'll make a presence right away. I don't think it'll be a significant impact. I think in time he could be a very, very impactful player because he does have all the tools that you look for.
So I'll actually answer this. I'm bearing down our Twitter friend. If you guys have not seen his content, please go on Twitter and follow I'm Bearing Down. This guy does so much work, goes through tape for all of us. He's a great follow. But he had a question today asking what the prediction is for tackles and for sacks for Booker this season. And I actually gave I said 30 plus tackles and 6 sacks. That's where I predict Austin Booker to be this year. A little bit lofty on the sack total, but all this guy's going to have to worry about is going after the quarterback. In his rookie year, they're going to want him to develop that run defense, but it's not going to be one of those things where he has to get out there and play 3 downs. It's not going to be necessary. But to answer your question, Scottish Bear, yes, I agree with Jeff. It is both. I think we will see a little production, and he's going to have to grow this year as well.
Yeah, I think your numbers are pretty accurate too. A little heavy on the sacks, but I do see about 20 to 30 tackles and probably about 4 sacks myself.
Yeah.
So let's get these last few questions.
Yeah, Vizo Joe's asking, Yo Twins, question, if Rome can't go next week, should we be concerned? I'm going to answer that with no. From what I understand, it is it's a hamstring issue, I believe. And it was just tightness. It wasn't like a pull or a tear. So no, to me, that's not really a big deal. It's more of a precautionary. This is OTAs. It's totally voluntary for the veterans. So, if Rome is in there learning the playbook, I don't think it's a huge deal. And if he's out again next week, it's again probably just a precautionary thing. It sounds like, according to Matt Eberflus, he's really good to go now. It's just kind of just ramping it up a little bit. So I would say not a big concern. Now, if we start getting into mini camp, then I would say that's a little bit concerning. But right now, I'm not concerned.
Yeah, it's just to me, it's like it's early. It's if it lingers into training camp, then we got an issue. But they've said it's all precautionary, so I'm not worried. Last question. Scrolls wants to know, when does Ryan Poles get a statue in a steakhouse? Well,
now, right now, build it.
Retired, because that's the way the McCaskies work. But I mean, we got to look. I mean, at the end of the day, look at the position this guy has put us in. And Aldo, you made an excellent point earlier when you were on here. His patience has been so fruitful. Just he doesn't make those moves. Greg Gabriel has talked about this in his pod many times. He's got a number. Poles has a number. He doesn't want to go over that with players. So his patience with that and willing and
he's disciplined. He's a disciplined general manager.
Being disciplined has allowed him to have flexibility when these other things happen, like Keenan Allen becoming available, or when let's say somebody else becomes available, like a pass rusher after final cuts and things like that. We get an opportunity to bring somebody on that, maybe if we'd have spent money on before, we wouldn't have had this opportunity, and maybe it's a better player even. So these things happen. This is why I agree. Like, look, like I said, as we might not be able to put a statue in front of in front of Halas Hall yet for him, but everything he's done so far has put this team in a position to have long-term success.
Well, and really quickly to go into that too. Speaking of the Keenan Allen situation, they were in on Mike Williams at first, and then that started to fall through a little bit. And then Keenan Allen, money, exactly, because he was staying patient and disciplined.
It wasn't the money; it was the they wanted more in value pick wise, from what I understand. They wanted more than a 4th round pick for him.
Well, and here was the other thing to that: they stayed patient and disciplined, and they probably got the guy that was better suited for your rookie quarterback anyway, who's also been healthier. Which is, Keenan's had a little bit of health issue, but Mike Williams was basically out for the entire season last year. So to me, that was they got the better end of the deal there. And that, they just sat back and waited, and Keenan Allen became available. So that just goes to speak into that, and in the draft, he patiently waited and Rome fell to him. So this is something that this man has done that we have not seen in the past, instead of going out there and signing Pernell McPhee to some massive, huge deal when the guy never panned out at all as a backup quarterback or a backup, pass rusher.
Let me make one more point before we get out of here, just to give you guys some perspective on this and to give you an example of this. Think about last offseason. The Bears were in on Mike McGlinchey, right? If the Bears would have decided to overpay for Mike McGlinchey and sign him to a big contract, they wouldn't have drafted Darnell Wright, And who would you rather have at right tackle right now protecting your rookie quarterback, Mike McGlinchey or Darnell Wright, a young, promising stud offensive tackle? I would much rather have Wright, but that's just me. So,
and you'd be strapped cap wise too. We wouldn't have the cap space we do.
It's a patient approach, and it's a smart one. You know, you don't overpay for guys if it's not totally necessary. And there's a number, like I said, guys, that he has that Greg has mentioned several times. So we got to remember that it's important, and this patience has gotten us to where we are. So, like I said, great show today, guys. I mean, we had a lot of great stuff in the chat from you guys. A lot of great questions. A lot of great exchange between us all. And really, again, thanks a lot, Aldo, for subbing in for Tim early on here. It was a really nice conversation we had, and really just good vibe from everybody in the chat today as well. So we really appreciate you guys. As always, give us all a follow at Barroom Network. I'm at _Jeff Willis. Tim is at _Tim Willis. I believe Tim Willis 24 is what it is, but maybe he changed it. So
that's correct.
Anyways, guys, so give us a follow, give us a like on the video, and find us again next week as we are every Friday. Bear down.
The Willis Twin Towers podcast is a Barroom Network production. Jeff and Tim Willis are the co-hosts and co-producers. Aldo Gandia is executive producer. Music is licensed from Pond 5. Any copyrighted material used was done under the fair use doctrine for commentary, criticism, and informative purposes. All of our programming is available in audio-only format by subscribing to the Barroom Network wherever you download podcasts. Videos are archived on YouTube.